Hello and welcome back to another episode of this podcast. And so we've been talking about the saints in the first Eucharistic Prayer, and we've been talking about in the last episode from the Gospel of St. Matthew, Matthew the tax collector, and we went in a little bit about St. Matthew. And do you have anything more to add about St. Matthew?
The women.
Oh yeah.
Were really significant. They're the ones he mentioned, other than Mary, are all Gentiles.
Bathsheba, Ruth, the Moabite.
So it all points forward to the coming of the Gentiles into the faith.
That's right.
But they all have slightly disreputable backgrounds.
Yeah.
And through 2,000 years of church history, we've cleaned up a great deal.
Mm-hmm.
So Mary would have been considered as having a disreputable background too.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of, if your daughter comes home and tells you, I'm going to have a baby, it's with the Holy Spirit.
The Holy Spirit, yeah.
Then you'll say, yeah, right.
Yeah. Hard to believe, yeah.
It's hard to believe, and based on Jewish tradition, you don't have intercourse with your husband until you've consummated, you're married officially and have gone to live with him. She hadn't reached that point yet. So by Jewish custom, she had committed adultery.
Because it was during the betrothal stage, right? And then that's where the guy would go and build the house,
right?
Kind of connecting with Jesus saying, I will go and prepare a place for you where I am. You will also be where I'm going. You will know the way.
Mm-hmm.
And then comes back and gets the bride. So part of the Jewish marriage practice,
right?
That betrothal stage, kind of like a engagement sort of thing, like we have today.
Right.
And,
you were considered married, but at the same time, not married.
Yeah.
So your marriage was binding, and any transgression would have been considered adultery. And adultery, although it was probably not enforced, was the penalty for it was stoning and death.
Right. Yeah, and it's a good. Well, and it's also interesting. I heard that in the Gospel of Matthew, where Joseph wanted to divorce her quietly, because if he did that publicly, she would be stoned to death. But the reason why he did divorce her quietly, so that whoever the true father is will be able to be in the life of the child. And here he didn't realize that it was God the Father, and that is his Father in heaven, and the Holy Spirit is the spouse, the Blessed Virgin Mary. So
Matthew really presents it as an act of compassion on his part that illustrates what a kind-hearted person he was. He should have been outraged, but he wasn't.
Exactly. And he was a righteous man. He was a good man, and perfectly chosen to be the earthly father of Jesus, and the human father of Jesus, adopted father. It was also interesting that one where in the Rosary, where the finding of Jesus in the temple, where Mary and Joseph returns and tells Jesus, it's like, your father and I, where have you been? Your father and I have been looking for you. And but she was referring to Joseph. Your father and I have been looking for you. But here Jesus says, don't you know I'm in my father's house? Yeah, doing my father's work. And the implication there is that up to this time, Mary did not tell Jesus about his true father in heaven. But somehow he knew. And of course, because he was the Son of God, the eternal Word made flesh and Son of God. But the implication there is that they never told him, and he found that out himself. So I find it very fascinating. I'm in my Father's house doing my Father's work. And so Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew. I'm sure there's more. If you want to know more, go to Ron's class. Yes, go to Ron's class. Yeah, on Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? Okay. So yeah, I think we're spending a lot of time talking about this, which is great, and it could be like a, just to take time, kind of like your class, and not to rush through it, but to really appreciate their life, and almost like a eulogy in some ways, eulogizing them and kind of memorializing them. So then Matthew, and then who's next? Simon and Jude.
Simon and Jude.
Okay, so they're more of a lesser apostles. So you got some of the apostles that we know a lot more about, and then we have some apostles that are more humble and less known. And I think one of them is a zealot, right? Simon the Zealot.
Mm-hmm.
So he was part of that group,
right?
The Zealots, and Jude is the patron of impossible cases, right? Because today was Saint Rita of Cassia, is also the patron of impossible cases too. And we heard a little bit about background about her life. So they're Saint Jude. Okay, so those are the apostles of Jesus in the first Eucharistic prayer. And then who else do we have next? Yeah.
Well, we next move to martyrs. Then we move to a bishop, a deacon, and some lay people. So the next part of the Eucharistic prayer, in some sense, points forward to, the whole of the early church, the
post-apostles, right?
Post-apostles, the leaders of the church, the laity, the bishops, the priests, the deacons, and the laity, men and women, people of various ethnicities and races.
That's good that you pointed that out, because there's an order and the kind of that succession from Christ into the apostles, and then the bishops, the popes and the bishops and deacons and stuff, and laity. So that's good. So who's the next person here?
The popes are Linus, Cletus, also known as Anacletus.
Is that Charlie Brown's best friend, Linus? No. Okay, Linus.
No doubt inspired by Clement.
Okay, so Linus is the second pope, right? After Peter?
Well,
Linus.
yeah, although actually there's some question in church tradition whether he's the second or whether he's the
after that
third. There's the Salamis of I'm sorry, what is his name? Oh my goodness, I've forgotten his name.
Don't worry, it'll come back to us.
Argued that Epiphanes of Salamis argued that Clement was actually the first pope, but that he gave up the papacy or the bishopric in favor of Cletus, and then became the fourth
pope.
Bishop.
Yeah. And then the third pope is Cletus, right? Second pope is Linus, third pope is Cletus, and then Clement was the fourth.
Cletus is an interesting name, which it means blameless. Well, actually, Anacletus. It means blameless. So it may be that he assumed the name because of his integrity, because of his moral character. But it's also a common name for Roman slaves.
Oh, interesting.
And he was a Roman, so he may have been a slave.
Oh, that became pope, that converted and became.
Yeah.